Hey everybody, welcome to the channel, True Crime Stories. If you're new to the channel, please hit that like button and subscribe so you can hear more. Thanks for stopping by. This next story is the story of the disappearance of Amber Renee Barker. Amber Renee Barker has been missing since December the 18th, 1997. She was 10 years old. She's described as a white female with brown hair, and she had pierced ears. She was about 4 foot 11 inches tall. She went missing in Oklahoma City. The circumstances of Amber's disappearance was that she was last seen at a friend's house on 45th Avenue in Oklahoma City. She left their home at around 6 p.m. and was last seen riding her bicycle down Drexel Boulevard toward her home. Several people have been interviewed in relation to her disappearance. The whole family was questioned. Everyone was questioned, taken to the police station. Some were given polygraph tests. She disappeared in 1997 while riding her bicycle home in the northwest Oklahoma City neighborhood. Police confirmed that they have been quietly looking into this case for the last few years. Investigators with Crimes Against Children Unit have been going over every piece of evidence with a fresh set of eyes to see if anyone comes up with something that they might have missed. In court documents, there were 3 men mentioned that the police interviewed: Daniel Smith, Forrest Rice, and Joseph Bishop. Joseph Bishop. The whole family was questioned, he said. He now lives in Dallas, Texas. Everyone was taken down to the police station and given polygraph tests and all of that. I do not know what happened to Amber that day, he said. I have no idea. He was dating Amber's older sister, Brandy, at the time, and he admitted that they had a rocky relationship. He said what happened to Amber most likely was the secret that Daniel Smith took to his grave. Now, Daniel Smith was the brother-in-law who committed suicide only a couple of days after Amber's disappearance. Now, Joseph Bishop says, I was 19 at the time and I still have nightmares about this. They took him in and questioned him. Then they let him go, and 3 days later they found him hanging dead in the park. Everyone just wants to know what happened. Police recovered Amber's bicycle as well as her shoes and a sweater. They found DNA on the sweater, but they have yet to make a match. So my question is, they didn't make a match. Did they keep any blood samples or any type of DNA from this Daniel Smith who killed himself? One person that the police believe may be vital to this case is a man identified as Forrest Rice, but he also uses the name Stephen Henley. Police say he is not a suspect, but they believe he may have crucial information. They wanted to talk to Joseph Bishop for the very same reason. What is his theory that leads him to think that Daniel Smith did this, other than the fact that he committed suicide a couple of days later? I do believe, my theory is that he was at the home, and keep in mind, pedophiles and predators often get involved with women who have young kids or younger brothers and sisters that they can get into that they can come into contact with. They are also often coaches and people that nobody would really suspect or think that it was odd that they might be around these kids. So, is it possible that this guy was a predator and that he got himself involved with Amber's sister solely to have contact with Amber? The day after Amber went missing, someone found her bike 1 mile away from her home. Now, what it says here is one of her shoes was found a block away from the other, so it sounds like someone was trying to discard these items in different locations. They also found a ring, a sweater, and a sock. Police made a partial DNA of a male on the sweater, and they have asked for DNA samples from two of the men that they questioned. Now it says here Amber's brother-in-law could not provide a sample as he committed suicide just 2 days after Amber's disappearance. Well, if the police thought that there was they had questioned him, they had questioned everybody. But if they thought there was a possibility that he may have committed suicide because of this, and that they might have a reason to have asked him for a sample when he was still alive, did they not think to take a sample after he died? Now, the sister, Debbie, does not believe that Daniel was involved in Amber's disappearance. And she does not believe that his death was a suicide. She claims that someone was responsible for his death, and she gave the name of this person over to the police. But they declined to investigate that. They say the man's name is Forrest Rice, who I mentioned earlier, who goes by the name of Stephen Henley. Rice told investigators that Smith was with him at his apartment the night that Amber went missing. So what they're saying is this Forrest Rice rather gave Daniel Smith an alibi. Now we know that he was at the home when Amber was on the phone with her mom. So apparently, according to him and according to this Forrest Rice, he leaves the home and he goes over to this guy's apartment. Rice also said that he was with Smith the day he committed suicide. So this is probably the reason why this Forrest Rice, Stephen Henley, was sought by the police for questioning. They wanted not only a sample of his DNA, but they wanted to question him as to maybe having lied for Daniel Smith about being his alibi that night, or is it possible that both of these men were involved in this? Is it possible that this is how they were able to get rid of her body? Investigators stated that blood, hair, and fiber evidence was discovered on Amber's clothing, as well as vomit and semen. There was blood on her shoe, but they say that their blood was so small that it was hard to link it to anybody. But they were able to form a partial DNA from the semen on the sweater. Daniel John Smith was previously convicted of kidnapping in 1995. He admitted that he assaulted a woman in Oklahoma City while he was intoxicated and tried to steal her car keys. However, the woman said that he was actually, when he says he stole her car keys, he was actually trying to force her into her car, and he tried to rape her. It's curious that a case with so many DNA samples has never pointed to the culprit. Now, this is an article that I found that was written in 2023 about Amber. Amber Renee Barker was born October 14th, 1987. She was 10 years old. She lived in Oklahoma City with her mother, Bonnie Barker. Now, Bonnie was a single mother. She and her ex-husband lived apart, and it says that Amber had 7 siblings. She was a student at James Monroe Elementary School. Around 3 o'clock on December the 18th, 1987, Amber leaves on her bike to meet a friend who lived very close, not very far away. She played with this friend for a couple of hours, and she made a phone call to her mother at around 5 p.m. Her mother says it was time to come home, and Amber says okay, she was on her way home. At around 5 p.m., she left her friend's house riding her 10-speed blue bicycle and was last seen riding down the street towards her home. The journey shouldn't have taken more than a couple of minutes, and it was quite common for Amber to stop and speak to other people, friends and others that she might run into that she knew. At 7:20, she had still not arrived home, so her mother calls the police and says that her daughter never returned home. About 35 people, including local police officers, FBI, and family members, set out to search the neighborhood for Amber. A man told Joan that he saw Amber riding her bike in front of the Drexel condominiums near Amber's house. This was at around 5:30 p.m. The following morning at around 10 o'clock, Amber's bike was found just south of the Drexel condominiums. There was no damage to the bike, and it was leaned up against a tree as though if someone had just leaned it there. To find her pants or her underwear. Her mother was desperate, so one day she goes into Amber's room to start searching for any kind of clues that she thought maybe if something was going on in Amber's life. And it was at this moment that this memory came to her that she remembered the day before Amber disappeared, telling her that she did not like Daniel John Smith and that she was afraid of him. Now, Daniel John Smith was the common-law husband of her older sister, Debbie. She told her mother that the day before Amber disappeared, she told her mother that he had tried to force her to get into his car and that she ran away from him. Now, it later comes out that she had also told her father and her older brother this same story, that he had tried to grab her and force her into his car. Now, Amber's mother quickly contacted the police and told them about this memory. And Daniel had already been interviewed, but the police were planning to call him to come back in for another interview with this new information. So on December the 20th, the police decide they're going to talk to Daniel Smith again. Now, a little bit about Daniel Smith. It says Daniel Smith did not have an easy childhood. His mother was a drug addict and he was neglected, so he was taken away at the age of 6 and placed in foster care. He grew up in varying foster homes, getting into a lot of trouble by his teenage years. He had already developed a problem with drugs and alcohol. At the time of Amber's disappearance, Daniel was serving a 5-year sentence for kidnapping. He had attacked a woman in a parking lot on April the 23rd, 1995. He claimed that he was drunk and that he was going to try to steal her car to drive himself home. However, after speaking with the woman, she says that he was trying to force her into the car, and he was charged with kidnapping. And a part of his probation was that he was to attend Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, go to counseling, and maintain employment. He was given a probation officer with whom he met with once a month, but it didn't take long for him to mess up and get into trouble. And on November 30th, 1997, just a couple of weeks before Amber disappears, the police received a call from Amber's sister Debbie, and she reported that she had been assaulted by Daniel Smith. The police didn't really seem to take this very seriously, and it says here that they made no significant efforts to arrest him. He was given a citation. Days before Amber's disappearance, he failed to attend his AA meeting, and an arrest warrant was issued. Now, they issued an arrest warrant because he violated his probation for not attending the AA meeting, but apparently not for beating up his girlfriend or assaulting her. So, sometimes things can happen that put people on the path that might have stopped them on that path. That's just my own thoughts. On December the 21st, 1997, the police were searching for Daniel Smith to question him about this memory that that Amber's mother had, about Amber telling her that he had tried to force her into the car. They find his silver Mitsubishi parked at a convenience store. People set out in the neighborhood searching to find Daniel Smith. At 11:30 a.m. on December the 22nd, investigators found Daniel Smith's body hanging from a tree in Ray Trent Park. His death was ruled a suicide. Now, it says here that the spot where Daniel's body was found, okay, what they're saying is that his car was found at a convenience store 5 miles away. And they wondered why he parked so far away from this place where his body was found. This is what led some of the family, some of this Debbie Barker, who was Amber's sister, to question whether or not he committed suicide. Amber's mother and father both said that they believe Daniel Smith did not act alone. They do believe that he was involved in her death, but not alone. They just believe that there are some theories that he may have been murdered by other people who were involved in Amber's kidnapping. Now, that would take you back to this Forrest Rice. The family believed that he may have also been involved in Amber's kidnapping. And her mother believed that right up until her death. Her mother was suspicious that he had been planning this attack on Amber for quite some time. And I believe he had targeted Amber. I believe he was a pedophile and that he saw Amber and was waiting for an opportunity. In 2015, a year after Amber's mother died, the lead investigator obtained a search warrant from inmate Forrest J. Rice. Now, Debbie Barker had given his name to the police and said that she believed that he was involved in Amber's kidnapping and murder. The DNA lab techs found blue fibers on Amber's coat and what appeared to be vomit and semen mixed in with the vomit. Daniel Smith's car had blue fabric seats, blue carpeting, and they believe that these blue fibers came from that car. And in 2015, a TV show aired an episode that featured Forrest J. Rice admitting to the police that Daniel Smith was at his apartment the night that Amber disappeared, and that they had spent the day together using drugs and alcohol. He admitted to being with Daniel Smith on the day that he committed suicide. And that's about it on this. It just says the case remains unsolved to this day. There are DNA samples, fibers of the clothing and hair that have never been able to determine a killer's profile. Theories are that the killer... Now, this is what leads me to believe that there were more than one person involved in this. They believe that the killer removed Amber's clothing and threw them out of the car window, and this is why shoe was found in one location, another shoe, and her sweater and her shirt were all found in different locations, close to each other. But so if one person was driving the car, how were they removing her clothing and throwing them out the window? Unless they had already assaulted her and then threw the clothes out the window later. They believe that she was taken to a different location, possibly to this Rice's home, and that they believe she was raped and murdered. Um, the police never found her pants and underwear. This leads them to believe that these were intentionally destroyed because they probably had DNA on them. A lot of people agree that they don't believe that Daniel Smith committed suicide. They believe that he was murdered. And some people say he was involved in drugs and it could have been a drug dealer or something like that, but I don't think that's true. I think it was whoever. He either committed suicide because he knew the police were going to, he knew that they were looking for him. And he was getting ready to be questioned again. And possibly this other guy thought he might talk if the police caught up to him. But there does seem to be quite a bit of genetic material collected from this case, and it's strange that they have never been able to link it to anybody, or have they really tried? I mean, this Forrest Rice is in jail. They could easily get his DNA from CODIS. Joseph Bishop says he, had nothing to do with it. I'm sure if that was true, he would have given over his DNA willingly. Hopefully, at some point in the future, they will be able to figure out whose DNA was on her clothing and put an end to this case. Thanks for watching.